You slept 8 hours. You haven't done anything demanding. It's barely midday, and you're already exhausted. Not sleepy. Exhausted. That kind of tired that makes everything feel like an effort. Starting things feels hard. Finishing them feels harder. And no amount of coffee makes it better. This isn't laziness, and it's not in your head. Something in your body is depleting faster than it can recover. Most people explain this feeling the same way. They're not sleeping enough. They're not eating right. They need more exercise. Maybe they're just lazy. These things matter, but they're not the full picture. Because plenty of people who sleep well, eat well, and exercise still feel this way. Chronically. The missing piece isn't lifestyle, it's neurobiology. Your brain runs on glucose, but the amount of glucose it uses isn't fixed. It shifts based on how much cognitive work you're doing. When you make decisions, regulate emotions, resist impulses, or sustain attention, your brain burns through glucose faster. This is your mental energy reserve. And it's not unlimited. It follows a daily rhythm. Peaks early, depletes through use, and requires genuine recovery to restore. The first system driving your energy is cortisol, your body's primary stress hormone. Cortisol is not the enemy. In the right amount, at the right time, it's what gets you out of bed and into gear. It naturally peaks in the first hour after waking. This is called the cortisol awakening response. But when stress is chronic, cortisol stays elevated all day. And sustained high cortisol burns through your energy reserve before you've done anything meaningful. The second system is decision fatigue. Every choice you make, what to eat, what to reply to, what to work on next, whether to check your phone, draws from your prefrontal cortex's executive function. This is the same region that handles focus and self-control, and it runs on the same limited reserve. Research shows that decision quality degrades significantly after sustained decision-making. It's not that you get worse at deciding. Your brain literally has less fuel for it. The third system is your autonomic nervous system, the background operating system that runs everything your body does without you thinking about it. It has two modes: sympathetic, fight or flight, high alert, energy consuming, and parasympathetic, rest and digest, recovery, energy restoring. A healthy nervous system moves fluidly between these two modes. A chronically stressed one gets stuck in sympathetic, burning fuel all day even when nothing is actually happening. Here's what makes this genuinely serious. These three systems don't operate in isolation. They amplify each other. Chronic cortisol keeps the sympathetic nervous system activated, burning fuel. Decision fatigue depletes the prefrontal cortex, which makes emotional regulation harder, which elevates cortisol further. It's a three-way feedback loop. And once you're inside it, ordinary days feel like running a marathon you never signed up for. In real life, this shows up in patterns most people misread entirely. The afternoon crash, and where energy collapses between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m., is not lunch. It's cortisol declining while the sympathetic system is still engaged. Brain fog in the morning despite full sleep. That's cortisol dysregulation, not poor sleep quality. Dreading simple tasks. That's decision fatigue depleting the prefrontal cortex before you've started anything important. These aren't personality problems, they're system states. The deeper issue is what happens when depletion goes unaddressed. Every day the energy reserve isn't fully restored. You start the next day slightly lower than before. It's a deficit that compounds. Researchers call this allostatic load, the cumulative biological cost of chronic stress and insufficient recovery. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It just makes everything feel harder, week by week, until normal effort starts to feel like maximum effort. Several common behaviors accelerate the depletion, and most of them feel like rest. Scrolling social media after work feels like switching off, but it keeps the sympathetic nervous system active. Notifications, novel content, and emotional reactions all maintain low-level cortisol. Irregular sleep, even by 1 hour either way, disrupts the cortisol awakening response. Skipping meals or eating poorly timed meals reduces the glucose available for cognitive function. and low physical movement removes the nervous system's primary recovery mechanism. Let's go one level deeper on glucose, because this is where physical and mental energy connect directly. Your brain uses about 20% of your body's total glucose, even though it's only 2% of your body weight. When blood glucose drops, from skipping meals, poor sleep, or sustained cognitive effort, your prefrontal cortex is the first region to lose function. You don't feel it as hunger. You feel it as irritability, poor decisions, and the inability to think clearly. This is the biology behind being hungry and angry at the same time. Sleep is where the reset happens, but not the way most people think. During deep sleep, your brain's glymphatic system activates, a biological cleaning mechanism that flushes out metabolic waste products that accumulate during waking hours. These waste products include compounds that impair cognitive function. One night of poor sleep doesn't just make you tired. It leaves biological residue in your brain that compounds cognitive impairment the next day, before you've made a single decision. There's one more energy drain most people never account for: emotional regulation. Every time you manage frustration, suppress anxiety, push through discomfort, or stay calm in a situation that irritates you, you spend from the same prefrontal cortex reserve that focus draws from. A difficult conversation, a frustrating commute, a stressful email, all of these cost cognitive fuel. By the time many people sit down to do meaningful work, the tank is already half empty from just getting through the day. So you're not lazy, you're not weak, you're not broken. You're running 3 depleting systems simultaneously, often without knowing it, in an environment that was never designed to support recovery. The chronic tiredness you feel is a signal, not a character flaw. A system telling you exactly where the drain is, and exactly where to intervene. Restoring your energy system isn't complicated, but it requires targeting all 3 depletion drivers, not just one. Sleeping more won't fix chronic cortisol. Eating better won't fix an autonomic nervous system stuck in sympathetic mode. The protocol addresses cortisol regulation, decision load reduction, and parasympathetic activation in sequence. Each step targets a specific drain. Together, they restore the reserve. Step 1 is regulating your cortisol rhythm. The most powerful single intervention is your morning. Bright light exposure within the first 30 minutes of waking anchors your cortisol awakening response, giving it a natural, healthy peak that declines as it should. This single habit sets the hormonal tone for the entire day. Combine it with delaying caffeine by 90 minutes, letting cortisol do its job first, and you get a fundamentally different energy curve from the first hour. Step 2 is reducing your decision load before it accumulates. This means making key daily decisions in advance. What to eat, what to work on, what order to do things in. So your prefrontal cortex isn't spending fuel on logistics during your peak hours. It also means limiting decision surface area in the morning. No social media, no email, no news before your most important work. Every decision you eliminate in the first 2 hours is a decision available for something that matters. Step 3 is actively switching your autonomic nervous system into parasympathetic mode during recovery windows. This doesn't mean sitting still and hoping for the best. It means using specific physiological inputs that signal the body to shift modes. Slow diaphragmatic breathing, particularly with extended exhale, directly activates the vagus nerve, which is the primary driver of parasympathetic activation. 5 minutes of this between focused work sessions produces measurable recovery. Not metaphorical rest, biological recovery. Step 4 is protecting your glucose supply. This doesn't require a complex diet, it requires timing. Eating within an hour of waking stabilizes blood glucose and supports the cortisol awakening response. Including protein and slow-release carbohydrates in the first meal prevents the mid-morning crash. And eating before your peak cognitive window, not during it, means your prefrontal cortex has fuel ready when it needs it most. Step 5 is physical movement, and not for the reason most people think. Exercise doesn't just burn energy, it is the nervous system's primary reset mechanism. Aerobic movement reduces cortisol, activates the parasympathetic system, increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which supports cognitive recovery, and improves sleep quality, which restores the lymphatic cleaning process. 20 minutes of moderate movement midday produces a measurable cognitive performance boost in the hours that follow. Here is what a day built around energy restoration actually looks like. Morning light exposure and delayed caffeine set the cortisol rhythm. Decisions pre-made the night before protect the prefrontal cortex. A stable first meal fuels the peak cognitive window. A 20-minute midday movement session resets the nervous system. And brief breathing recovery periods between focused sessions maintain parasympathetic balance. This isn't a perfect day, it's a recoverable one. Your energy isn't a mystery. It's a system with 3 specific drivers, a measurable reserve, and a clear restoration protocol. Regulate the cortisol rhythm, reduce the decision load. Activate the parasympathetic. Protect the glucose, move the body. Each step targets a real biological mechanism. Together, they restore the battery that focus, motivation, and discipline all draw from. That battery is the second component of the mind-body loop, and next time, we bring all 3 together.